Apprentice Bard? That's what you're internally naming your ChatGPT competitor, Google? Come on, Sundar. You can do better than that. I know you've been busy. You've got your Q4 earnings and your AI first focus for the future of Google, 20 products rolling out, and so much to cover. Let's get into it on the SEO Weekly. Welcome back to the SEO Weekly, where queries are weird, advice is controversial, and everything depends. I'm your host, Garrett Sussman of iPullRank, and every week I cover everything going on in the world of SEO. We're talking blog posts, podcasts, webinars, new tools and features, and of course, Google updates and apparently AI and ChatGPT these days. If you're into this, please subscribe to the channel, give us a like, share on the socials. I genuinely appreciate it, but let's get into the SEO news. So the big featured story this week is all about how Google is aiming to enter the AI content, AI generative conversation when it comes to their products. A few weeks ago, we heard about the code red because they're being threatened by OpenAI. And on Thursday, they just had their Q4 earnings report where Sundar Pichai, the CEO of Alphabet, announced all about the goals going forward. We know from New York Times reports that they're probably going to release around 20 products that are AI related. A CNBC report indicates that they're actually testing an AI chat internally that could be incorporated into search named Apprentice Bard. Interesting name, probably won't be the final product name, but they're actively testing it. In fact, they have been thinking about becoming an AI first company for the past 6 years, according to Pichai in the announcement. He said, in terms of search too, now that we can integrate more direct LLMs, large language model type experiences in search, I think it will help us expand and serve new types of use cases, generative use cases. And so I think I see this as a chance to rethink and reimagine and drive search to solve more use cases for our users as well. So again, early days, you will see us be bold, put things out, get feedback, and iterate and make things better. Now, Alphabet has a reputation for creating products that they eventually sunset sooner than later. A lot of products do not make it and do not become everlasting. They want these billion-dollar unicorns. That said, what AI content and AI use case tools look like for Google is going to be significantly different than ChatGPT. It is not going to be apples to apples with the Lambda technology. For instance, you can have ChatGPT produce code for you. That's probably not going to be the case with Google search implementation. Jeff Dean put out a fascinating research report about what Google is trying to do with integrating multimodal experiences and understanding. That's related to MUM, but the idea that text and video and audio, both consumption, understanding, and generation need to be intertwined to produce new content. Remember, Google's had the Google Assistants for a while where you can basically speak into it and it'll output text. But imagine over the next year, 2 years, 5 years, where you can incorporate images, video, audio, all produced through various Google products, let alone once they open up Lambda as an API to other companies that can base their entire software applications on that large language model. We're at the very, very early stages, but we have to pay attention to what Google's doing and how this ultimately impacts SEO. You're going to want to think about, what does a question and answer chat interface in search do for your content? For instance, one major consideration is anything that is informational will most likely be able to more easily be answered through the chat. Does that impact your SEO strategy? It's something to think about because at the same time, you still need some of that fundamental informational 101 content to become a topical authority on your specific sphere of influence. So there's going to be a lot of experimentation. There's going to be a lot of strategy changes as this tech is integrated into search. What do you think? What are your predictions specifically for Google search, AI chats, and SEO? Really curious. Let me know in the comments. Beyond the big featured story, Google had an office hours last week where John Mueller, Martin Splitt, and Lizzie Sassman kind of went over a range of different questions covering all these specific, nuanced questions that people submit to them. And it's super helpful to get their perspective, even though a lot of this stuff is already covered in Google documentation, just to hear it from their representatives' mouths kind of validates, sometimes concerns that you have, like whether or not EXIF data is used on images for e-commerce sites, or how to do structured data for a service business and maybe focus on, local business structured data, whether or not to disavow spamming links. All really interesting insights that may seem basic for a lot of you, but if you're getting started in SEO, it's a great resource to kind of get that confirmed. Also, interesting new Google Search Console reports coming up for the video index pages. So they added for the video index pages an impression count, which is actually different than video search performance. It's a good clarification because the search performance video report focuses on the entire property for impressions, whereas this video indexing report is actually grouped by specific pages. So if you have a video on different pages that appear in search or discover or little, visual video snippets, those will actually count as individual impressions and might give you a more valuable insight into the performance of specific videos as opposed to more generalized property, the entire property of your videos in the search performance. Second is sitemaps. So being able to look at specific videos on specific sitemaps. So if you're using sitemaps to segment out some of your videos for different kind of sections of your website, you can now do that more effectively in Google Search Console. So keeping it rolling with the Google. Always news coming out of the Google. Okay, on the OpenAI ChatGPT side of things, OpenAI released a pilot subscription program for ChatGPT called ChatGPT Plus. Basically, you pay $20 per month and you get, full access during peak volumes. You get faster responses. You get ambiguous, first access to new features. Basically, if you're using ChatGPT already a ton and you're running into the dreaded, like it writes you a rap song while you're waiting for it to, go down from peak volumes, well, this is your subscription tool. So cool. It's more expensive than Netflix, but if you're using a lot, I get it. I get why you would pay $20 a month. OpenAI also released a new text AI classifier. Basically, it'll help you distinguish between AI generated content and human content. Like a lot of the detectors, the AI detectors that are already out there, this actually claims to be the best. That being said, if you look at the documentation from their research and from their own tests, only 26% of AI-generated content was identified as AI content, which is slightly problematic. There's a lot of false positives. However, still somewhat useful if it's the best one out there. And Shabam Sabu did a really cool Twitter thread breaking down how you can use it. He, shows an example. He shows how you try it out. Step one, you get the AI generated text and run it through the OpenAI classifier. Then you copy the text and run it through GPT-1. That will help you fool the classifier by randomly replacing words with synonyms in your text. Step three, check the newly generated text again by running it through OpenAI classifier, and voila, it's now categorized as human generated. So interesting to see how you can manipulate it to get better results. But like I said, false positives anyway. So who knows how useful that is at this point? Sorry, not sorry. Moving on to the world of social media, Cindy Crum of Mobile Moxie has a really cool Twitter thread take on AI writing and whether or not it's good for the internet. She says, I've not really talked much about AI-generated content in the SEO context, but ultimately I think it's a good thing. Not necessarily good in terms of recommending that you use it for SEO, but good for the long-term impact on the web and society. I think that the immediate impact will probably be bad for the web and hard for Google to cope with, and it will definitely shake up digital marketing and SEO in a lasting way. It will be overused and misused in every way possible. But Google and other good search engines will figure out ways to spot it and devalue it. We have already seen the beginning of that with the helpful content update, What I like to hope for is that those efforts will also make Google better at spotting all low quality content, because low quality content is problematic regardless if AI was used to generate it or not. My larger hope is that this will really focus digital marketers and eventually society at large on not just parroting the same ideas over and over again, but expecting people to use their brains. I often encourage people to say things that have never been said and think thoughts that have never been thought. In a world where you can rank by saying nothing new and writing about topics that you know nothing about, we only entrench the echo chambers and endorse mediocrity. Panda and Penguin nearly wiped out entire digital marketing industries that were just buying and selling links or helping sites generate high numbers of low quality content, thin content pages, both practices that made the web worse rather than better. The next major update, I personally hope it's named after a black and white animal like a zebra or something, will hopefully wipe out the low quality copywriting shops that are generating loads of value free, empty, vapid, repetitive, grammatically flawed content. I hate that this practice has nearly been table stakes for ranking in some industries for so long, and I'll be thrilled to see it finally stop working. I am so ready. Bring it on. So I wanted to call out a great Twitter thread / LinkedIn carousel by Brendan Hufford all around Monday's SEO strategy. Monday is the project management SaaS company that's held up as a paragon of great SEO in a lot of case studies, but Brendan came with the heat and he tore it down. Basically, he breaks down how, in fact, despite Monday creating a ton of content, none of it really ranked effectively. So they spent all this money on content without a sound SEO strategy. The reason that they did see significant growth was because of purchase backlinks, and where they spent 5 figures buying, 34 links prior to actually publishing a lot of the content. So, he said no judgment, obviously backlinks help, but his big point was it wasn't about the content strategy and the keyword strategy for SEO. It was really about having the financial resources to kind of accelerate, pour fuel on the fire for their growth based on their backlink profile. One interesting thing that he calls out that caught my attention is that he talks about this idea of survivorship bias. Sometimes if you have good results, that doesn't necessarily mean you have a good strategy in place. And sometimes if you have bad results, it doesn't mean you have a bad strategy in place. Sometimes there are environmental factors that work to your advantage despite your own actions, tactics, and strategies. So really interesting thread. Hate to be like a negative tear down type of call out, but sometimes it's important to point out that examples of quality results shouldn't necessarily be emulated based on their strategy. There you go. On Twitter, Roxana Stingu called out a couple of minor changes to Google's documentation for image SEO best practices, just kind of identifying the nuance of the language with some like recommendations, some enforcements. She goes through it, kind of word by word, which is great because it clarifies in specific examples what you should be doing, so there's less ambiguity. I like this thread from Roxana. Great follow. Definitely follow her if you're not already. Last week, we covered Jonas Sickler's article all about topic clusters on Wix. Well, at the top of every topic cluster, or the center, if you will, is a pillar page. And Lauren Fox wrote this excellent breakdown of pillar pages specifically on the Moz blog. She talked about the value, especially from a business perspective, how pillar pages tend to generate more revenue or blog subscribers or product purchases or all sorts of actually needle moving metrics, because it's that centralized area that people come to learn about what you're an authority on, what topic you have expertise. She breaks down a very thorough how to build a proper pillar page, whether you're starting from scratch and you don't have all the subtopic contents, or if you already have content and you want to identify what's the highest performing and then build a pillar page to connect to all of those. So great article, great actionable advice. Awesome job, Lauren. Definitely check that out. Every week on the Rankable podcast, I always ask my guests, what is your best SEO tip or tactic? And so many times internal linking has been the number one tip. So we've got this great blog post all about how internal linking can actually impact your topical authority, written by Andrew McDermott. Andrew breaks down the value of internal links in terms of PageRank and distributing that equity, the value of doing that properly to build those topic clusters and build yourself as an authority. He goes through like specific issues you want to address, like broken 404s or improper linking. He recommends tools that you can use to identify and assess your internal linking. And then finally, he actually goes through specific strategies for a couple of major industries like e-commerce, media, financial services, a really great practical how-to on internal linking and the formula that you need to ensure that you're considered an authoritative presence on your topic. Okay, so nobody's touching Google search market share anytime soon, probably. I mean, Bing is a great product and it's nowhere close to Google. You got DuckDuckGo, Neeva. None of these are really making a dent. And it almost feels like a meme, but it must be acknowledged that hilariously, a couple weeks ago, Jim Lanzone, the CEO of Yahoo, announced, remember Yahoo, that they're making search cool again. Apparently, Yahoo is going to get back in the search game. Jim, who was actually the CEO of another meme-worthy business from the early 2000s, Ask Jeeves, if you remember that search engine, is adamant that they're starting to look into it. They're hiring and they're going to build something around a search engine. What do you think with Yahoo? Or, I mean, if you're from the 90s, 2000s like me, you remember using it. That was an option. Their commercials were hilarious and it functioned as you would need for a search engine back in the day. But maybe it'll come back. I'm excited. I'm down. Let's see. So it's not 100% connected to SEO, but it's Black History Month, and we are a Black-owned agency by Michael King. So this month, we're actually doing a series of events to connect Black marketers and SEOs together. The first one is a fireside chat that we're hosting this Thursday, the 9th, basically sharing our experience, not mine being white, but Michael King, Aaron Johnson, Vital Parker are all going to have a casual and honest conversation about what it's like to be Black in corporate America, talking about professionalism, representation and mentorship, goal setting, compensation negotiations and pay equity, imposter syndrome, resources, and a lot of really interesting topics. We'll be having one a couple weeks later for women and then ending the month with a really big webinar on the impact of Black culture on marketing in America and advertising. So super excited for all these events. Keep your eyes peeled. The events will be live streamed on LinkedIn, so you can attend and register there. You'll see the link for those events in our description, but super excited about them. They're really important conversations to be had. So if you know someone who would benefit, please shoot it along and have them join us. Cool. See ya. Another really cool event is WTS Fest. Women in Tech SEO, one of our partners, is hosting their first American live conference. So this is going to be held in Philadelphia at Sear Interactive Studios on September 21st. It costs $300, and it's going to be 8 different talks by 8 speakers, all from women in tech, about SEO. It's going to be awesome. Arija Abouali is organizing it. She's doing a fantastic job. I have confidence it's going to be an amazing event. So they're currently selling tickets. It's a small, intimate affair, so they're running out. So if you want to get tickets, you better hop on that train soon, like now, like early bird tickets, like get it now. SEO SaaS proprietary metrics. The goal of them is to help guide you in showing you the value of a given website. Sometimes they're pretty ambiguous, but historically, Moz's domain authority has completely, massively messed with the industry where people actually think it's a Google ranking factor when it's something that Moz made up. Ahrefs has their domain rating, and SEMrush actually has a authority score. Now, they wanted to improve that score to make it more valuable, so they had a cohort of industry experts. I actually participated in this to ask them questions about the value of the metric. And so they released it last week, basically score of 0 to 100. it's a comparative score. It's not absolute. So it's based on, the size of your site and your niche, not to be just compared, apples to oranges. You want to compare to your competitors or a general sense of domain, but it uses three main areas: link power, the value of relevant, positive, high quality links, organic traffic, and spam signals, a natural profile. So identifying what specific manipulative factors would have a negative impact on your score. Ultimately, it'll give you a sense of if you have a quality site based on your size. It's really interesting. It's getting a lot of kudos from people in the industry. Now, remember, it's not definitive. This is never going to be a Google ranking factor, and it's not 100% transparent, but much more than many scores in the past. I think it can be very useful to analyze your link profile and ultimately determine if you're going in the right direction. So kudos to SEMrush for putting out, really caring about putting out a link site quality rating score that has value. It'll be interesting to see how they continue to iterate on it, but I'd love to hear your take on these types of scores. They're somewhat problematic, but they can also be helpful. I think for clients, that can be really tough to educate them on these because you see a score and you think, okay, bam, that's what I'm going to go by. No, it's just another thing to consider as you're working on boosting your SEO performance. And finally, more of a service than a tool, but Editor Ninja, run by John Doherty, released a edited services for AI written content, which I think is a really cool solution to the fact that if you're using AI generated content, the process still needs editing. You can't publish like raw AI content and expect Google to, help it rank, because typically there'll be errors in there. Sometimes it's not structured properly. It's very rarely going to hit the voice of your brand and tone like effectively. So check out the service. It's a great solution if you're already using AI generated content for a lot of your blog content on your website. Very cool. And that's it. Another episode of the SEO Weekly in the books. I'm really curious to hear what you think is going to happen with Google and AI and integrating in search in the future. As always, thank you so much for watching and paying attention. And if you're into this stuff, give us a subscribe to the YouTube channel. Give us a like, share on the socials. I genuinely appreciate it. My name is Garrett Sussman of iPullRank, and we will catch you next week.